Hello, welcome to another video from Betfair tradingcommunity.com. Today we're going to aim to do some live trading on football right now, in play trading. I'm going to be looking at what I'm going to trade. I'm not sure yet. We're going to have a look at some of the stats and kind of make a decision on this game. We're looking at Elfsborg v Värnamo in the Swedish Allsvenskan. So I'm going to head over and look at the stats. That's the first thing you're going to want to do, right? So go over to the Betfair Trading Community site. Let's get the game up. I've got the game up, as you can see already here, Värnamo and Elfsborg. We've got the goal times, and you can see straight away the thing that stands out to me here, first half, 31 to 45 minutes, 14% of them have goals. So if we look at totals in particular, we can see there's 9 goals between 31 and 45 minutes. Now, that is speaking to me that perhaps we might get a late first half goal. Okay, so that's straight off the bat. I know this is going to be quite quick, but I kind of want to give you a sense of what it's like trading live in play, looking at stats like this and what to do with them. Okay, I want to look second at halftime scores because it's currently 0-0, right? So let's have a look at the halftime scores. We can see here only 3 out of the last 20 games have been 0-0 at halftime. So these teams, home team playing at home, away playing away. So we know that's a huge percentage. What's that? 85% are having a goal. Now, of course, as time goes on, that percentage is going to increase. But if we can get decent odds on a first half goal, we may well be cracking here. So I'm going to go to the game itself now quickly. I'm going to have a look. We're actually coming up to the 30-minute mark, which is where we want to be. We can see there's been 8 shots on goal, if you can see that down here. And you can see 2 shots on target. Okay, that's not huge. So I'm going to be rushing in particularly here. But I do like the fact that they have a lot of first half goals. Let's go back to the stats again quickly here. And let's have a look at scored conceded. And we can actually see here that Värnamo score a lot of goals at this time. Okay, see this green bar here? That's goals they've scored between 31 and 45. That's high, okay? Elfsborg, sorry. But Värnamo, not particularly high, but they have conceded a fair few. So we would expect Elfsborg potentially to be the ones who score, and unsurprisingly, they're quite heavy odds on to win this match. The market does expect goals to an extent. 30 minutes have passed. Let's see what odds we can get here. And this is another thing. I'm on the over 2.5 goal market, as you can see now. I've zoomed this in a bit so you can see a bit clearer. Someone said the other day that sometimes the longer shots are a bit blurred. So I wanted you to really be able to see the trades themselves. So let's get on to this match here. Again, as you can see, 2 Swedish games. The other one's had a goal already. What I want to look at here is first half goals. A very simple market, okay? We're now getting above evens on a stat that we know happens a lot of the time. I think we're looking at a value proposition, and the odds are just going to continue to get bigger. The question you're going to have next when you trade is stake. I wouldn't go too high on this purely because it is pretty much an all or nothing trade. We're not going to get out of this bet, okay? So it's one of those. So let's say you use £10 stakes as your normal. Let's just put a 5 on. Let's half it. Let's say you go 50%, okay? And very simply there. And this is very much a data-driven trade, right? We've seen that there's a lot of first-half goals that these teams have, and we've seen that, obviously, the match is expecting goals, and we've seen they score a lot in this time period. Now, if they don't, you've kind of got a decision to make on the second half. What play do you make? And this is something this is another reason why it's worth hanging back that second part of your stake, only going in for around 50% at this time. Let's go back to the stats here and let's have a look at full-time scores. We can see here there's no 0-0s full-time between the teams. So that's really interesting, right? So when they're playing, obviously, last 10 home games for Elfsborg, last 10 away for Värnamo. So that's interesting. We can see that there's clearly second half goals. Again, looking at the halftime scores, you can see how bunched up it is. There's 8 1-0s. Well, if we go to full-time scores, there's only 3. So we can see that 1-0s are also converting a very high percentage of the time. Looking at overs, unders. Again, can be a really simple way of looking at this. And as you look at it here, under 0.5, it's only happened 3 times in the first half. It's also only happened 3 times in the second half. And that means that in the second half, there's been a goal 17 out of 20 times. That's something to look at, right? Don't just look at, if it's 0-0 at half time, does it convert? Look at how about whatever the score is, how often do they convert in the second half? And you can take that and go 85%. Okay, that's pretty high here. So we've got the trade we're going to do for now. We might come in on something in the second half. The other thing I'd say, because I really want to the idea of this very much a demonstration video, as you can see, hardly got any money on it anyway. But what I want to show you here is that when you look at this cash out button now, it's going to look bad the whole time, right? Until there's a goal, and there might not be a goal, but let's say until there's a goal, if there is a goal, you will look at that cash out button and it will look negative. Now, I think a big problem Betfair traders have, and this isn't talked about enough whenever I see people train Betfair traders, is when you're looking at that red figure, it's a really bad place to be. It's not good psychologically. So unless you're very strong in your Betfair trading, this might be something that really puts you off. Now, let's say a trade like this where you're getting in, essentially set and forget bet really more than a trade. You're getting in play during the match, and you're hoping that there's a goal between 31 and half time, right? But here we are in this spot, and we're constantly going to be looking at a red unless the goal goes in. So my advice, don't look at it, right? There's literally no need for you to sit here watching, and people do this all the time because I get messages about it. There's no point sitting and watching going, oh, but look, maybe I could cash out now. No, the value told you this was a trade to make. Be happy with that. Now, another option you've got is, especially if you're going in smaller stake, you could go even smaller. Let's say £10 your normal stake. Maybe you start with £2 and you build up as the price goes up. We're already at 2.68. Well, you can see we took odds of 2.24. Obviously, that's a lot better. So as the price goes up, you could top up a little bit by bit. I definitely don't have any problem with that. I kind of prefer sometimes just to put it in at once, just get it done. Mainly because, a lot of the time I'm monitoring quite a few games that I might want to trade of an evening. But if that is your only trade and you kind of trade 1 or 2 matches a day, then, there's definitely nothing wrong with thinking about splitting up your stake. What I would say on that is test it. So I think where a lot of traders go wrong is that they don't test things like that. And then they go, oh, I split my stake, but it's really annoying because all the goals keep coming, within the first 5 minutes of my trade. Okay, if you track that on a sheet, if you're tracking it on your data sheet, and we've got a free testing sheet we can send to you. So if you say the word spreadsheet in the comments, we will actually send that to you for free. And that will help you with your trading. We really want to help people who don't have spreadsheets, who are struggling with their trading. But if you put this data into your sheet, things like goal times, you will be able to see, okay, I would have actually been better if I'd waited. I would have got a much bigger price on this first half goal if I'd waited. And then that will be a good position for you to be in. Okay, I think that's it for the advice. That this trade might not win, it might lose, we might come back and do some in the second half. Let's see how it goes. I'll be back towards the end of the half, or if there's a goal, I'll be back then. Okay, so we can see what we expected to happen has happened. Elfsborg have scored in just actually a minute before half time. Bring up the market so you can see that. Not sure why the market's still open like this. But anyway, we've refreshed it enough. You can see it's a winner. So profit there, £6.20 minus commission. Happy days. But again, not about the stake here. I'm talking about a trading example and why I took that trade in particular. So we saw everything behind it. Now, this wasn't a trade that I particularly premeditated or anything like that. I went to Betfair, went over to the Betfair trading community software and checked out the stats. And that's what you can do, because I know a lot of you guys, I'll always say, plan it, have your strategies ready. You can see I've got all these strategies ready to trade, but have your strategies ready. But a lot of you guys say to me, well, Martin, I want to go and trade in the match. I want to trade in play. I want to just trade the match I'm watching that night. Well, the best way to do that is to back that up by data. We picked this game, but we then went and looked at the data. Now, we saw some of the second half stuff. I was kind of preparing for a second trade in the second half. And I think that actually there would have been a good trade to make. And I'm going to show you what it was. So if we go to goal times, and we've got the amount of goals here, but I always like looking at percentages. We can actually see that there is a really high amount of goals scored between 50 and 70 minutes. So what I would have done here, and you'd have a choice of markets. You could go for over 1.5 or over 2.5 goals in that spot. I'm not sure what I would have taken, would have depended on the odds, of course. But if it's still 0-0 at 51 to 70, that was definitely a trade that I would have looked to make. And perhaps, you could say, well, even with the result you've got, maybe use some of the profit to do that. And that's fine as well. Remember, in this situation, we're not going to make a loss now. We've had a nice profit on the market. A lot of people just like to take the profit in that spot, move on. But you could go, well, I want to get back involved in the second half. There's a few late goals as well. 11% come between 80 and the finish. But yeah, obviously you'd get much juicier odds, and that's the thing, right? So if we look at over 1.5 now, the odds are just crazy short. Right, so that's not a market that's going to greatly, even at 50 minutes, that isn't going to jump out hugely. The same with the over 2.5 market. Now, the odds are a bit better. And again, you could just get in, half stake and trade this one out a bit. So yeah, that's kind of just a decision to make there. But anyway, job done. Trade was successful, and we looked at the stats. And that's what I'll say to people. Because no matter when you're trading, you should always be using stats. Obviously, I recommend the Betfair Trading Community stats software. If you're not already a member, we do actually give people a strategy to start with. You can see that, we've got plenty of strategies to give out. But yeah, we give you a strategy to start with based on the criteria matched with you. We give half price first month as well, so that you can come and see what it is, kind of give it a bit of a trial before you commit long term. And yeah, so I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you did like the video, we have got some free strategies we can send you. That's without even being a member or anything. So if you want the free strategies, just say the word free. You can either say the number 3 or the word free, and we will send those over to you. Did you enjoy this video? Do you like me doing, trades like this, kind of talking through the psychology of it, the process of it, things like that? A lot of people say they'd like to see more of the live trading stuff. And I'm happy to do that. As you know from videos past, I'm happy to share wins or losses trades-wise. It's much more important to think about the process behind your trade. Why are you making your trade, and could you explain it? If I came up to you and you said, I've had a bad trade today, and I go, okay, tell me why you made that trade. Could you explain it in a rational way that would be fair enough? Or would it be a case of, well, I was just watching the match and I fancied a bet? Because I've shown you a situation here where even if you're just watching a match and you fancy a bet, you can go and look at the data and go, okay. We can see there are plenty of shots on goal. Well, look, now it's 13 shots off target, 5 of them are on target. Well, 13 shots total, 5 of them are on target. That's quite solid. It was already 6 and 2. So I think 8 actually and 2 at that point, because the other team had 2 as well, hadn't they? So yeah, that's the key. Use data, back up what you're doing. You can see here, 31 to 45 minutes, 14% of the goals came at that time. It's actually the most popular time for goal during the match, other than 51 to 60. And again, you might want to get back in on this later in the game.